absolutely, Mike. Well, we saw that last year at Southport, this has been the response of both the Home Office and two-tier Keir Starmer to weaponise free speech, all of the sacrifices that many generations, centuries actually, that England and Britain led the way in terms of being able to have free conscience and free speech, speak freely in our society, is now under attack enormously. And it should be noted that it was the Conservatives originally with the
Yeah.
online safety bill. So they're all responsible for this. We warned at the time that this would be weaponized and could quickly result in people having speech reduced. We've now seen this weekend that with the Online Safety Act, that people are having those very protests you refer, Mike, not being able to be seen, some of them in Leeds and elsewhere. And then we have at the same time an attempt to have the police have a new unit set up that can police our tweets and our posts. We've already seen Lucy Connolly imprisoned for 31 months, whilst at the same time, people who commit acts of violence and say other things are not subject to the same kind of law. We do not have policing without fear or favour, and we have a weaponised judiciary. This is terribly dangerous, Mike, when we're being gaslit, being told that all these terrible things are happening elsewhere, and indeed some bad things are happening all over the world. I mean, it's interesting people don't mention Syria and Yemen and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, but things are happening all over the world. But the British public is furious about what's going on with the lack of control on borders and migration, and the fact that people are putting hotels close by to them with all sorts of facilities when we've got a cost of living crisis. And then they're called racist and lots of other smears because their mums and families do not want children being abused and attacked. It's really dangerous, Mike. And I think the thing is that the first port of order is that, like we've said all along at Together, we must have the ability to speak freely, to criticise, to shine a light on things, to say what we believe in our country. And this next step, to have a snooping, spying police on our posts, specifically about migrants and about hotels, really means that this is consolidating, an attempt to consolidate the idea you're not allowed to say certain things. We need to reject it out of hand. That's why we're arguing for a digital Bill of Rights and to say no digital ID as well, because it's going to be underpinned around digital ID, but a digital Bill of Rights, because right now the government can outsource censorship, and it can fine internet companies 18 million or 10% of their revenue, and they can imprison them for 2 years using Ofcom. And so we have a situation where companies will err on the side of caution, and we've seen it all before. We've seen it with shadow banning throughout lockdowns. We've seen it with censoring. We had spy units sent to citizens, to journalists, to doctors, to the rapid response unit and the counter disinformation unit that's been resuscitated. And what does this all mean? It means that, you know, we got a situation where we're being told, all right, as well, digital ID for migrants who throw ID into the sea and who are not going to be subject to any of that, like criminals who won't be subject to any of that. But ordinary, everyday people would be more suppressed by digital ID. We need to reject this idea of a new police force snooping on our messages. And also we need to repeal the Online Safety Act. We've now got 330,000 people have signed this within 48 hours. It will go, I'm sure it will go over 500,000, but people are furious because they know that in the land that really gave the idea of free speech with Magna Carta and then the Constitution and all the people who fought through the Reformation, the Second World War, and fought for freedom and democracy, it's now under huge attack, and we need to reject that together.
Yeah, well, also interesting reading through some of the effects of this new Online Safety Act, where even Katie Lamb, the Conservative MP, had a speech kind of suppressed on Twitter, a speech that she actually made in Parliament, right? And apparently you're not allowed to see it unless you can prove that you're over 18. I mean, they want to give the vote to 16-year-olds, but they don't want them to look at certain things which might have to do with which way they're going to vote.
Well, this is the thing that's so ludicrous, Mike. Look, all of us would be concerned, and it's about parenting when it comes to children and pornography. But you see, they've used this argument on the Online Safety Bill and Online Safety Act. What it's effectively going to mean is that everybody has to prove who they are all the time. And that adults have to prove who they are just to get onto the internet. And as you say, there'll be things that are suppressed and banned. We similarly had a debate on assisted suicide pulled down by YouTube. Ironically, something that was saying that we did not want assisted suicide by the state to happen. On the basis, it sounds like, I think, because they've got an algorithm that they're concerned about people committing suicide. So whether it's malicious deliberately or just part of an algorithm with good intentions.
Well, the problem is these algorithms are just not very subtle, I think. You know, you might remember years and years ago, we got shut down by YouTube by mistake, effectively, but it was a real problem because the algorithms then shifted around and it took us a long time to get back to where we'd been.
That's right, and as when the Online Safety Act is so punitive and threatens so much, Silicon Valley companies will err on the side of caution. We've also seen that the Digital Service Act across the EU is in place. The EU have already got digital ID and they're pushing central bank digital currency. That is the direction that these technocrats who can't deal with problems, they can't deal with issues of crime. Rather than deal with the issues of crime, what they're doing is they're trying to criminalise all of the public. They can't deal with burglaries, but they've got a new unit coming out to police our social media posts. The public is furious with this and it must change. It's got to be repealed and we've got to kick out these snoops and have a digital bill of rights, and it needs to happen now.
Yeah, are you hopeful that President Trump might have something to say? J.D. Vance has previously said that this Online Safety Act is an affront to free speech and it shouldn't be something that Britain tries to impose upon American companies. But yet it seems to have gone ahead nonetheless. But, you know, there's a pretty good chance that Donald Trump might say something about it when he meets Keir Starmer later, I think.
Well, I hope he does say something about it, Mike. And indeed, like, you know, we've seen with some of the measures that he's done, that can have that can definitely have an impact. I think it's important that your viewers and all of us recognise that, like with the families who are protesting outside these hotels now peacefully, but brilliantly and bravely, that it's going to be up to us in Britain. It's great if Donald Trump can say something, and maybe he'll decide to do some things economically on that basis. He said that about freedom before, but we need to hold our elected representatives to account. And you know, other people have said if they get in, they will repeal this, they will stop this. But we need to insist, and we need to write to our MPs. If you go to togetherdeclaration.org, you can do that. We need to let them hear from us. We need to carry on protesting and arguing peacefully, calmly, and be resolute and saying, you know, we absolutely need policing without fear or favour. We need crime dealt with. We don't need new laws, and we definitely don't need snoops and censors charter. And we have to make sure that we argue and articulate that, like those brave people did for centuries in Britain, that put their lives on the line. I mean, we're the custodians of those things, and actually it's far less threatening to us than it was to those people who really did put their lives on the line. But the time is now, because if we don't address this, we're going to find ourselves in a completely dystopian situation.
Yeah, Alan, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. And thanks for all the work you do. Alan Miller, co-founder of the